Good evening, Litchfield. This is I'm Tina Harrison, the current chair of the school board, and I'm here with Dr. Mike Jetty, our superintendent. We just wanted to take a moment to address some of the questions and go over some of the financing questions about Article 6, which is the LMS renovation. So we have some information for you tonight, and then I've kind of gathered up some questions that have been popping up on Facebook and that have been emailed in. So we want to make sure that everybody has their information that they need to make a wise, informed decision on March 8th. So,
excellent. So I'm just going to walk through the slideshow very quickly because really what Article 6 is all about is presenting Litchfield with some choices. We are facing major repairs at Litchfield Middle School or an opportunity to do upgrades and produce energy savings, which will result in long-term reduced costs for taxpayers. So we really think this is a great opportunity to support Article 6 and to get the school updated as necessary. So basically, what is it that LMS needs? We are required really in the near future to replace the 2 oil-fired burners that are in the school. They were original to the building in 1987. We included them in our capital improvement plan that was approved in 2020 by the Town Capital Improvement Committee. And that's because those boilers are failing. We also have an underground oil tank that will fail the next inspection, and that tank will have to be replaced. It's been in the ground since 1987. We have heating and ventilation systems that are failed or in the process of failing, and that's throughout the building. And that also was included in the 2020 capital improvement plan. As we've studied LMS more in depth, we've identified poor insulation in certain places, specifically 2 places, the slab that is exposed on the outside of the building, and there's also an air gap throughout the entire upside of the building, and that needs to be sealed up and closed. And finally, we need to renovate the kitchen. It's undersized, it's not adequate for preparing meals for today's standards, and that was also included in the 2020 capital improvement plan. When you add all of that up, it's approximately $4.1 million worth of renovations and updates that need to be made to the building. However, the school board is recommending that instead of just replacing like with like, we are proposing that we replace the oil heat with air source heat pumps. We're also proposing that we convert to renewable solar power, and that will produce long-term savings for taxpayers. We also are proposing to implement energy efficiency upgrades, closing the gaps, better insulating the building, replacing the lighting with efficient LEDs, and that we use the savings that we capture for planned capital improvements. So the kitchen renovation and then converting the unused space of the PE locker rooms into classroom space, that can all be accomplished with the savings that we generate from the project. So a yes vote on Article 6 means that we will have high efficiency heat pumps and ventilation throughout the building. We will have a solar power system on the roof. We will have lower stabilized energy costs for 30 years. We will have healthier learning spaces with better ventilation. That's important when we face the next airborne illness, cold and flu season, or another pandemic. We want to make sure that we have better ventilation throughout the building. We will renovate our kitchen, and we will gain 2 new classrooms by converting those unused PE locker rooms. And if you haven't had a chance to view the video, there is a tour video that's available that shows exactly what we're talking about there. The cost of doing all of that is $4.95 million with grant support. But if we vote no on Article 6, we're really going to be in a tough situation because we will have to replace the oil heat system, the boilers, and repair the piping. We will have to replace the underground oil tank. We will have to replace ventilation equipment. We will have to find a way to renovate the kitchen, have energy costs that continue to escalate. With the worldwide market right now, we're all seeing what's happening with the price of oil, and it's just an unknown cost volatility. If we convert to solar, we get out of that cost volatility market. But if we stay on we stay on oil, we'll continue to have to purchase oil on a volatile market. And finally, we would have to defer the new classrooms because they would not be part of the project. So that's going to cost about $4.1 million to pull off. So it's really a question of how we want to spend that money. We'll show you in a minute that a yes vote will save over $3.9 million in the next 20 years. And so it really does result in a long-term strategy that will help all of us in the long run. This chart shows the first 10-year cost comparison. And so a no vote is basically the red line. And you can see that we continue to buy oil. We continue to have escalating costs. We have to repair and update the oil systems in that building. And that will cost more than the yes vote, which spends $4.95 million, but results in those lower energy costs. You can see that once the solar array is paid off at year 7, then the gap continues to widen where the long-term savings start to be put into our pockets. So the cost of yes is lower than the cost of no every single year of the next 10 years. And those energy savings are guaranteed because we are producing the energy ourselves through the solar array. This takes the chart from the 10-year mark in about the middle out to the 20-year mark. And you can see that the gap between the red line and the green line continues to increase. And this is how we get a projection of $3.9 million in savings over the 20 years. And to do this, we are using historical heating oil increases of 11% a year. Those are national averages, and electric increases of 2% a year, which are also national averages. How do the numbers add up? So on this chart, we're showing that the heating, insulation, renovations, and lighting are $5.985 million. Based on feedback at deliberative session, we have added in a backup electric heat system to it. Our engineers think that it might be utilized a couple of times a year at most. They were very confident that it was not necessary. However, public concern about what we would do on extremely cold days, how we would respond when the heating system, the ventilation units were into a defrosting mode, have resulted in us sharpening the pencil and saying, let's add backup electric heat at $100,000. So it brings the project to $6,085,000. So that was in direct response to public concern at deliberative. We're now taking out the existing funding. So you can see that we have ESSER 2 funds that we can utilize. A new piece is the Eversource rebate. So at the same time that we added $100,000 in, the Public Utilities Commission reversed its ruling and a rebate was available from the utility. So that was nice that we had an extra $135,000 available, plus impact fees, capital reserve transfers, and year-end funds bring us to a available funding of $1,135,000, leaving us with a finance package of $4,950,000. So this is how the numbers have matched up and how we've responded to concerns that were raised. The solar array is separate. The solar array is a $1.4 million array, and the power purchase agreement means that the company that is financing this will be able to recover about $490,000 in federal rebates that we do not qualify for. If we purchase them ourselves, we could not get those federal rebates. But by going through a power purchase agreement, they are able to get a $490,000 rebate. Plus, there are energy savings of about $90,000 a year that will go toward the project. And then in year 7, there is a lump sum payment that we need to make. So the total finance cost of the array itself is zero because it's being financed from the first $90,000 a year in energy savings that we're realizing across the district.
And could you talk just for a moment, go back to that other slide about the LMS energy savings? You have 90K per year for 6 years. Is that the total amount of the savings that we expect to see in oil and electricity district-wide?
It is not, because we're also doing energy upgrades at CHS. So we have a very exciting lighting project that's not costing the taxpayers any money. So we've been able to find grants and using impact fees, we hope, to fund that project. So that won't cost the taxpayers anything, and that's going to produce additional savings. We're projecting the savings to be almost $200,000 a year. And so about half of it, $90,000, is going to go toward paying back this grid. The rest of the money is available to help pay for the municipal lease. So when you come back to this chart, and we have to pay back the 4.95 million. That is also being helped by the additional energy savings that we are able to realize through all of these projects.
Thank you.
So additional benefits of voting yes on Article 6, no longer subject to the energy price fluctuation, so we can accurately budget energy costs each year. Anybody knows that the big unknowns in our budget are energy costs and healthcare costs. Those are the things that escalate the most and can fluctuate the most. So this brings stability to the energy side. We also will add the 2 flex rooms in order to reduce size and cost of the new GMS. By having the extra space at LMS, we can keep the 5th grade there. And when we get to the GMS project, we'll be able to design for a PK through 4 building as we currently configure. The environment will be healthier because we're going to have that ventilation and fresh air coming in, which we don't currently have at the rate that we would like. And we're going to extend the life of LMS for more than 30 years. It would cost over $37 million to replace Litchfield Middle School. So making an investment of about $5 million to get another 30 years out of it is smart money and a smart way to proceed. So what is the FY23 tax impact? Well, the municipal lease will run for approximately 20 years, and it'll be at approximately 2.5% interest. And it's important the voters understand this. Today is Thursday, and last night we opened the bids at 5 o'clock. So now we're in the process of negotiating with the banks to get the best deal locked in. And several of the banks gave us different scenarios. You could do this, you could do this. We need to nail that down. We think we're going to land in this ballpark, but we're not exactly sure. And this isn't trying to be, shifty with the numbers. The numbers are not solid yet. All our projections seem to be true. It seems as if we landed in getting bids in at about what we predicted them to be. But until they're finalized, we can't really put numbers to it in the way that some people have asked us to. Mm-hmm. We do know that the tax rate impact of Warrant Article 6 is 16 cents per thousand. And that means a $400,000 home will pay about $64 in total for the project next year. So key takeaway messages. A yes vote is going to save taxpayers money over time. It's going to reduce the uncertainty of volatile energy costs by supplying energy from solar generation that we will own after year 7. It will improve the learning environment for students and for our staff. It will address long identified and prioritized capital improvements. These have been in the works for 5 years. They were on the capital plan in 2020 that was approved. This is not coming out of left field. It was known stuff that we needed to do at the middle school. And it's innovative. There's a finance mechanism that will save taxpayers money and enable projects to begin sooner and finish faster. So we feel that this is exactly the right thing to do and is a very good situation for our taxpayers. So that's our brief overview and explanation. Mm-hmm. What questions have you seen out there that we need to make sure we address or we might not have hit with these slides?
Sure. I know that we received some emailed questions into the Litchfield School Improvements at litchfieldsd.org, and that is still the best place to submit questions to receive a direct answer from our team. But I've also seen quite a few concerns, voiced on Facebook, and so I thought this would be a good chance for us to address those. There seems to be concern about going solar in general. Have we considered propane? Have we considered biomass or other alternatives to oil that aren't solar?
Yeah, so we have. When we first started this project, biomass was on the table. Geothermal was on the table. Instead of air source heat pumps, using ground source heat pumps. We also considered shifting over to propane. But as we've learned at the high school, the prices of propane is incredibly volatile also. So throughout all of this, we really whittled this down to air source heat pumps as the right solution, the most cost-effective way. That technology has come a long way. And by the way, we're not putting in a bunch of residential air source heat pumps. These are commercial air source heat pumps that really produce differently, well, the same technology, but they're bigger and they just produce more heat because of the size of them. So we've worked closely with Mitsubishi to make sure our engineers have designed it correctly. And so at the end of the day, this is what we feel is the best solution for the project.
That was my next question, was about the air source heat pumps, because there have been some concerns that they're not suitable for a cold climate like we have in the winter in New Hampshire. Have we addressed, I mean, I'm sure that we vetted that and have a response to that.
So we've talked with our engineering firm. They are confident in the ability of the system as designed to keep up with it. And one of the things that I want to point out is that in phase one of the project, we installed an air source heat pump. And that air source heat pump actually is for the main office at the middle school, the nurse's office, the teacher's room, the guidance office, and it also supplies heat for the music room. So it's really kind of that center core of the building. And so that was installed as a model project. We wanted to be able to say to the taxpayers, we've done this, we have experience with it, and we know how it performed. And we were able to obtain this chart, which is showing the actual temperature in the LMS main office area, plus all the other ancillary spaces. And basically what we have said to it is we would like it to be between 70 and 72 degrees in the room. Those are the two red lines that run across. And then the black line that you see is the actual temperature that was logged, not through the system, but through a data logger that was just recording the temperature in the space. You can see this was over an entire week in January of 2022. And on January, I can't read the date here, I think it says 27th here at the bottom, it was 0 degrees outside. That's a pretty cold New England day. And you can see that throughout that day, the air source heat pump kept up with that cold temperature. At no time was a temperature below 70 degrees recorded in that office. So we believe that this shows exactly how an air source heat pump in Litchfield Middle School, where everything is kept equal, the walls are the same, the roof is the same, etc. This shows how that performed. And next year, when we insulate the slab as part of this project and we close the air gap along the roof, it will only help these numbers because it'll be a better insulated building, and we'll be able to show that, in fact, this is working and working really well in Litchfield, New Hampshire, in our building.
Great. So the next question was about the solar array. What happens when there's no sun?
So
or the power goes out?
Yeah, so the reality is there are cloudy days. There are days when the solar array will not be producing electricity, and we will still be connected to the grid, and we will use electricity supplied by Eversource as we have for many years. However, you have to look at it on an annual basis. In the summer, when the sun is shining and the days are long, it will be producing a lot of electricity that we will be earning credits toward. And by the way, in the summer, when the lights aren't on, the classrooms aren't used, those credits will actually be, we think, exceed or come very close to what our annual demand is. So yes, there will be days in the winter where snow has fallen on the array, covered it up, it's not producing electricity at that moment in time, and we're drawing off Eversource, but it'll be made up for on all the sunny summer days, long sunny summer days when the array is producing electricity that we don't need, and we're selling it back to the grid.
Great. Okay.
The other question was on when the power goes off.
Right.
So that happens now. The power goes off, and we are left without electricity in the building. Our current heating systems rely on electricity to circulate warm water throughout the building, and that stops. The pipes have never frozen. We have found ways to keep the building from freezing up, and it's worked out very well. We actually think that this puts us in a better position because the solar array, when, I hate to say this, but everybody else in Litchfield doesn't have electricity, Litchfield Middle School will. And the solar array will be producing electricity so that we can heat the building and make sure that the pipes don't freeze. So we're not worried about this. We actually think it's an improved situation over current.
I have just two more questions. One was about the balloon payment for the solar array in year 7. Where will that money come from?
So right now, the board is going to have to determine how to budget for that in the future year budgets. You're looking at about $62,000 a year over 6 years in order to produce that balloon payment. And so it'll be important that the board identify the source of how to find $62,000 within the operating budget, or to, what I would encourage us to think about is parking that money out of year-end fund balance, for example, into a reserve fund so that we have the balloon payment and nobody's caught off guard by that. But honestly, the board has not voted on the exact strategy of how to do that. Everybody's aware of that, and 62,000 we believe we can find and identify in the next year budget cycle.
Great. And the final concern that came up on Facebook quite a bit was what happened to GMS. I thought GMS was our top priority. Where did this come from, and why is this taking precedence?
And you asked me this question when we first
I sure
proposed
did.
this, because I know GMS has been a near and dear project for you.
Yes.
And by the way, the biggest priority in the district is GMS. But if we focus on a new GMS and we ignore LMS, it will be many years. By the time we bond and complete the GMS project, it will be many years before we could get back to LMS, and it could turn into another GMS problem that we have to address. We don't want to do that. So by leveraging all of the available funds now, especially the ESSER funds, and taking advantage of the money that is available to us, our goal is to button up LMS so that we don't have to ask for anything else. And to do it in a way, the other thing is the long-term energy savings. I think this just paves the way for what we're going to be able to do at the GMS project. It's really exciting what I think we can bring forward, but we need the taxpayers to back us up and understand that we are being innovative, and we are coming up with a plan that helps to pay for it through the energy savings.
Right.
Let's spend our money wisely. We're gonna be back next year with the GMS project. Hopefully, that's the plan, right? That's what's on the long-term plan. But at least LMS will be buttoned up, and we won't be saying, oh, but now we need to do this at LMS too.
Right. And even though we're being innovative with this project, and going towards sustainable, renewable energy, and that can be that transition can be concerning to a lot of people. It's not a brand new idea. This isn't a pie in the sky. Hey, let's do this. Let's dream big here. This is addressing many of the needs at LMS in a fiscally conservative way. So
absolutely true. And there are plenty of schools that have been built new that are embracing a lot of this technology. To renovate and embrace this technology is a little bit unique, but it's innovative. As you said, it really puts us on the cutting edge of doing a project that is smart and responsible for the taxpayers and for our students and staff. I mean, it just produces a better situation.
Well, thank you. And thank you for tuning in and listening to our explanations. If you have any further questions, I would encourage you to send them via email to Litchfield School Improvements at litchfieldsd.org. Sometimes we're on Facebook, but most of the time I'm not. And that is the best way to have your questions answered directly. So thank you for spending some time with us, and come out and vote on March 8th.
Thank you.